This is Recurse. Recurse is Lese's foray into the idea of recursive processing. That is, an audio effect that feeds back into itself and processes an incoming signal over and over and over again. You could consider Recurse to be a looper as well as a delay, as it can do both of these things but works to do much more than just that. The main aspect of Recurse is its looping functionality, which is controlled down here. The 5 nodes represent the order in which effects are processed, and the looper input and output nodes determine where the backwards or forwards delaying will be fed. The order of these nodes is determined by dragging them backwards and forwards, and you can enable and disable if they actually process audio by pressing the toggle buttons. Let's look over the processing nodes with more depth. First of the effects is the EQ. The equalizer works in the same way as others do. You have 4 bands and you adjust the frequency, gain, and Q value. The purpose of the EQ is to increase or decrease the amplitudes of certain ranges of frequencies as the recursions go on. Using it right is crucial to making recursive effects that are somewhat stable in volume and decay. You can also change the scale of the filtering with this knob here, and even invert the filtering by setting the scale to a negative percentage. The second one we'll look at is the Degradation module. This system incorporates multiple kinds of degradation effects into one system. Let's start from left to right without any looping. The warp processor creates an out-of-time or flutter effect by changing the pitch of the incoming signal sporadically over time. The warp control determines the depth, and the rate controls the speed of the warping. The wire processor does frequency-dependent saturation. The 3 filter handles on the screen here control how much coloration is occurring in different parts of the frequency spectrum. The red and yellow bands are shelf filters, while the blue filter is a bandpass filter. The aging processor removes the high and low end elements of the signal to create a feeling of old vinyl or tape. Think of the sound as getting older as the age value increases, as more and more of the high and low end get removed. The dropout processor randomly reduces the sound's volume. As the dropout slider increases in its value, the depth of the dropout increases. At 100%, the dropout totally cuts out the sound, but at lower values this effect is more subtle. You can also control the frequency of the dropout, obviously, as well as the variance, which changes the randomness of the dropout pattern. Finally, there is a dust effect. Simply put, the dust volume adds more dust crackles to the incoming sound. And the density value changes how densely the dust crackles are. We created the dust sound effect by sampling many dozens of very short dust crackles, and we play them back with a custom-designed stochastic sampler specifically made for Recurse. Now let's take a look at the Reverb module. One thing to note with the Reverb module is that the reverberator can add a lot of extra amplitude to your sound, so it is advised to use it sparingly when it's working in a recursive loop. Recurse's reverb effect is emulating a modular synthesizer's reverb. The controls are somewhat easy to understand. The size value here changes the early reflection time, and using the decay value in tandem with the size can change the reverb's overall tail length. The diffuse control adds diffusion scattering to the reverb, and the control points on the screen control the diffusion damping. Pull the control points down to increase the damping, and change the frequency to further color the sound. The depth and speed values control the reverberator's modulation. The pre-delay value adjusts the time it takes for the reverb to onset. And the width value adjusts the stereo imaging of the reverb. Finally, let's look at the looper module. The looper is controlled as one effect, but it's processed based on different nodes, and the positioning of the nodes changes the sound. The first thing you will notice is that changing the forward button here adjusts the direction of the audio feed, and thus the arrow in the ordering changes as well. When the delay feeds forward like this, you only hear it once, but when feeding it backwards, it will feed through many times, much like a conventional feedback delay. The length is arguably one of the most important controls of Recurse. It changes the length of the recursion loop. It can either be set in seconds, like it is now, or synchronized to your host BPM with the switch here. The feedback value here changes the amount of audio that gets fed back into the chain after the looping delay. Increasing it will certainly increase the length of the overall recursion. The ramping changes the amount of time it takes for the looping time to actually get to the new desired length. In cases where you'd like to start a fresh loop like now, you can press the clear button to clear the looper's internal audio. Some things like reverb tails may remain though, if a reverb is being fed through the chain. Recurse also has a few dozen stock presets, and these are accessible via the preset browser in the plugin's header. We will make another video that goes over how some of these sound. Thank you.